Welcome back to the deep dive. You guys know the drill, right? You bring the questions, the interesting sources, the curiosity, and we dive deep into them.
That's right.
Today, we're going on a little adventure into the world of K-pop fandom.
Okay.
An awesome study here, and it uses something called social identity theory. And it uses that to understand the psychological impact
Right.
of being a K-pop fan of those experiences.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
The paper we're looking at today, it's called Positive Psychosocial Outcomes and Fanship in K-pop Fans, a social identity theory perspective
Okay.
by Derek A. LaFan, published in Social and Personality Psychology,
Right.
like in 2021.
So this is some good research.
Yes.
So yeah, for our listener, you're the learner here.
Yeah.
And our goal today is to pull out those key insights from this study about why and how being a K-pop fan can affect well-being.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a way to understand the power of passion and community in our lives.
Exactly.
Cool. So let's jump right in.
So the study starts off by kind of setting the scene
Okay.
with this phenomenon called Hallyu, or the Korean wave.
Right.
This refers to the global rise and popularity of South Korean culture.
Yeah.
And K-pop is a really big part of that.
Okay.
The paper points out that this wave, this Hallyu, really started making waves around the year 2000 with pioneers like BoA, Big Bang, SNSD,
Oh, yeah. Girls' Generation.
also known as Girls' Generation,
Right.
and SHINee. These were really the artists that first began to cultivate these huge international fan bases,
Oh, okay.
particularly across Asia.
Right. And then there was that moment, right?
Yeah.
Where K-pop just blew up,
Mm-hmm.
globally for everyone, it felt like.
Yeah,
PSY's Gangnam Style.
of course, yes.
Late 2012.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that went super viral.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody was talking about it.
It was a true phenomenon.
Right.
The study notes that the song garnered over 3 billion views on YouTube. It's an incredible number.
Yeah.
And it spent a remarkable 122 weeks on the Billboard charts here in the U.S.
That is wild.
Right.
Okay.
That level of mainstream recognition, it was really a first for K-pop.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, following that, we've just seen this incredible rise of ETS
Yes.
globally, and feels like they've kind of redefined international success for a music group.
Undeniably.
Yeah.
The paper highlights their 2016 album, Wings, as a key milestone.
Okay.
It achieved the highest chart position and became the best-selling K-pop album ever in the United States.
Wow.
That really solidified K-pop's presence in Western markets.
Right. Which brings us to this term I've heard, Hallyu 2.0. Right. It's
Yeah.
not just like a continuation of the first wave.
Right.
What makes this new wave distinct?
So that's a good question. Hallyu 2.0, the study describes it as having a few key features.
Okay.
First, there's been a substantial growth in K-pop fandom, specifically within Western countries. Second, there's this proliferation of multimedia content.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's not just about the music anymore.
Okay.
There's the music videos, behind-the-scenes glimpses, reality shows.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And it's also readily available, too.
Right.
And then the role of social media
Okay.
in how fans consume, interact with, and even create K-pop content, it's just immense.
It is huge, yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
The study even references a 2019 Forbes estimate
Okay.
indicating that BTS alone had over 90 million fans worldwide.
90 million.
That's just one group.
Yeah.
That gives you a sense of the scale of this fandom.
That is massive.
It is. And their strategic use of social media, for direct fan interaction, that's very much a hallmark of Hallyu 2.0.
Okay.
It likely contributes significantly to this strong fan identification and thus higher reported fanship levels.
So we've got this huge global reach.
Yeah.
Now, the study tries to understand what it means to be a fan, from a psychological perspective, and they use this theory, social identity theory. But first, how do they even define a K-pop fan?
Well, according to the study, a K-pop fan, and they're drawing on earlier research here, is characterized as someone who exhibits loyalty, enthusiasm, and a deep admiration for K-pop culture.
Okay.
However, they make a really important distinction between two concepts.
All right.
Fanship and fandom.
Fanship and fandom.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a subtle but important difference.
It is.
So what is the difference?
So fanship is more focused on the individual's personal psychological connection
Okay.
to K-pop itself, to the music, the artists, all the different content. Fandom, on the other hand, refers to the individual's psychological attachments to other individuals who share that passion.
I see. So it's the community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about the sense of community.
Okay.
And the bonds that form among those who love K-pop.
Right.
The study cites some foundational work by Racine and Branscombe from 2010 and Schroy and colleagues in 2016 to support these definitions.
So somebody could be really invested in K-pop, right?
Yeah.
Like the fanship part, but not really be involved in the communities.
Right, exactly.
The fandom part.
Yeah, you could have one without the other.
Interesting.
And this is where social identity theory, or SIT, comes into play.
Okay, so how does this theory help us understand K-pop fans?
So SIT, it was developed by Taj Felon-Turner back in 1979.
Okay.
The core idea is that our sense of self isn't only based on our individual characteristics. It also comes from the social groups we identify with.
Okay.
So we categorize ourselves and others into these groups.
Right.
And this social categorization actually contributes to our overall identity.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so applying SIT to K-pop fans, you can see how they might view their fanship, their love for the music and idols, as a part of their personal identity.
Okay.
But their fandom, their connection with other fans, that becomes part of their social identity. And the theory says that we tend to have really positive views of our in-groups, the groups we belong to,
Right.
and we contribute to the well-being of those groups.
Yeah.
The study references a 2017 paper by Kim and Kim,
Okay.
which showed K-pop fans actively engaging with each other in online communities, which aligns with this idea of fostering these in-group connections.
That's like finding your tribe.
Exactly.
But through this shared passion for K-pop.
Precisely. And the study does briefly mention this term sasakengpen,
Okay.
which refers to a very extreme type of fan known for engaging in kind of intrusive stalker-like behaviors.
Oh.
Yeah, and they include this just to acknowledge that this phenomenon does exist within some fandoms.
Right.
But they emphasize that it's not at all representative of the vast majority of K-pop fans.
Okay, so it's important to make that distinction.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so we've got this theoretical framework set up.
Yeah.
What were the researchers hoping to figure out?
Well, the main objective of the study was to see how much K-pop fanship influences things like happiness, self-esteem, and social connectedness.
Okay.
They wanted to see if identifying as a K-pop fan and being part of that community was linked to these positive psychological outcomes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So who participated in this study?
They had a pretty big group, 1,477 K-pop fans from 92 different countries.
Wow.
Most of them were Western countries.
That's a good sample size.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
The majority of the participants were female, about 70%, and the average age was 23,
Okay.
with ages ranging from 18 to 55.
Okay, so quite a range.
Yeah, and the countries with the most representation were the USA, the UK, the Philippines, Canada, Ireland, and Germany.
So truly global.
Yeah, very much so.
What about their engagement with K-pop? Like how often were they listening?
Well, a large majority, nearly 60%, said they listened to K-pop every single day.
Well, okay.
Another 34% listened a few times a week.
So K-pop was a regular part of their lives.
Oh, yeah, for almost all of the respondents.
Interesting. And who were their favorite artists?
BTS was the clear favorite.
Makes sense.
Almost 45% of participants mentioned them. Other popular groups like Twice, Big Bang, Red Velvet, and EXO were mentioned too.
Okay.
But BTS had a significant lead.
All right.
It's worth noting, though, that lots of fans said they had multiple favorite groups.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And they also asked about how long they'd been fans.
Okay.
The biggest group, around 37%, had been fans for 1 to 3 years.
All right. So how do they measure these concepts? Fanship, happiness, self-esteem.
Oh.
You can't just ask yes or no.
Right. They needed specific tools.
Right.
To measure fanship, they used the fanship scale,
Okay.
developed by Racine and Branscombe in 2010. It's a self-report questionnaire, 11 items,
Okay.
designed to assess how psychologically attached someone is to a fan interest.
I see.
So examples of statements are things like, I would devote all my time to my interest if I could, or I want to be friends with people who like my interest.
Right. Okay.
Participants rate how much they agree with these statements,
All right.
and the researchers found the scale was a reliable measure in their study.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the other things they were looking at?
Well, to measure happiness, they used the Oxford Happiness Questionnaire.
Okay.
It's got 29 items, assesses general levels of happiness. These are questions that are phrased both positively and negatively.
Right.
For self-esteem, They use the Rosenberg self-esteem scale.
Okay.
That's a classic one.
Yeah.
It's got 10 items, and people rate their sense of self-worth.
Right.
And finally, to measure social connectedness, they use the social connectedness scale revised, which is a 20-item scale.
Okay.
It explores how connected people feel to the wider social world.
All right.
The study reported good reliability scores for all these measures.
Okay, so we've got the participants, we've got the tools.
Yeah.
Where were these fans engaging with K-pop?
Well, the findings showed that online video platforms like YouTube were super popular. Over 97% of fans use them.
Makes sense.
Yeah, social networking sites like Facebook, music streaming services like Spotify, those were popular too.
Okay.
Each used by about 76% of respondents.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few also used dedicated K-pop fan sites.
Like what?
Like All K-pop, for example. When it came to online fan communities, Reddit was the most popular.
Interesting.
Followed by Twitter fan pages and then Facebook groups. And it's interesting to note, a majority, almost 57%, hadn't actually been to any in-person K-pop events.
Oh, wow.
Like concerts or conventions.
So it was mostly digital.
For this group, yeah, very much so.
Where were they getting their K-pop news?
The biggest sources were the official social media accounts of the idols and groups.
Makes sense.
Followed closely by web articles and online forums. Bloggers and word of mouth were important for some too.
All right, so we've got a clear picture of who these fans are, how they engage with K-pop, and where they connect.
Yeah.
Now, what did this study find?
Okay, so this is the heart of it all.
Yeah.
The study found that a few things predicted higher levels of K-pop fanship.
Okay.
Identifying as female, listening to K-pop every day,
Right.
being younger,
Okay.
having BTS as their favorite group,
Makes sense.
and being active in like up to 3 online K-pop fandom communities.
So some of those are pretty intuitive,
Yeah.
like listening every day, being in a community.
Right.
But what about some of the others?
Well, the gender difference, that's something that comes up a lot in fandom research. Though the reasons for it are complex.
Okay.
The strong preference for BTS, that's likely because of how big they are globally.
Right.
And how they engage with their fans.
Yeah.
But here's a really interesting finding. Being a fan for more than 4 years didn't predict higher fanship.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd think the longer you're a fan, the more dedicated you'd be.
Right.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive.
It is.
But it suggests that how often you engage with K-pop, like listening daily, might be more important than just how long you've been a fan.
Wow, that's a good point.
Yeah, it highlights that staying active, engaged, that might be key.
That makes sense. So what about the big question? Did being a more dedicated fan mean you were happier?
Well, the study found a significant positive correlation between K-pop fanship and all 3 of those outcomes we talked about: happiness, self-esteem, and social connectedness.
So yeah, more dedicated fans reported greater well-being.
It seems that way, yeah.
Interesting.
And interestingly, the data indicated that happiness was the aspect of well-being most strongly predicted by the level of fanship.
Okay, so what does all this mean? How does it relate back to the theory?
Well, these results really support and build upon previous research on K-pop fandom and SIT, especially the work by Kim and Kim that we mentioned.
Okay.
It strengthens the idea that when people see themselves as K-pop fans and feel like they belong in that community, it's linked to good things psychologically.
Right.
Real benefits.
And that interesting finding about listening frequency being more important than how long you've been a fan.
Yeah.
How does the theory explain that?
It suggests that actively taking part in the group,
Right.
in this case, by consistently listening to the music,
Hmm.
and maybe interacting online, that might be more important for keeping a strong social identity
I see.
and experiencing those benefits.
Right, it's not just a label.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to keep that connection strong,
Yeah.
even if that connection is mostly with the music itself.
You got to keep engaging.
Exactly.
Okay.
The study also suggests a few reasons why K-pop fandom might have these positive effects.
Okay, like what?
Well, it could be that these online communities provide a real sense of belonging,
Right.
of support.
Yeah.
It could be that for some people, K-pop is a positive alternative to mainstream Western pop culture. And social media might make fans feel closer to the idols. Okay.
Which strengthens their fan identity.
That makes sense. Now, every study has its limitations, right?
Of course, yeah.
What were some of the caveats here?
Well, they point out that this study is correlational. meaning it shows relationship between things, but it doesn't prove that one causes the other.
Right.
So we can't say for sure that being a K-pop fan causes increased happiness,
Okay.
just that the two often go together.
I see.
They also say future research should follow fans over time
Okay. Yeah.
to really understand those relationships.
Right.
And they suggest digging deeper into the motivations and experiences of the fans.
All right. So to sum it up, we learned that being a K-pop fan, especially when you're listening to music daily and you're part of the online community, that's linked to some good things.
Yeah.
Greater happiness, higher self-esteem, feeling more connected.
It seems so.
And it's not just about how long you've been a fan.
Right.
It's how much you engage with K-pop that seems to matter more.
It's a really fascinating insight.
It is. This research gives us a valuable understanding of how our interests and the communities that form around them can actually impact our well-being.
Yeah.
It highlights how powerful shared passions are.
And belonging.
Absolutely.
So to you, our listener, think about your own passions, your interests, whether it's music, a hobby, sports, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Think about the communities you're a part of. How are those connections shaping your happiness?
It's a good question.
Yeah,
It's something to think about.
it is.
The world of fandom and its psychological effects, it's such a rich area of study.
Yeah.
And this research really provides a great foundation for understanding the positive side of it.
At least within K-pop.
Yeah.
Well, that was a really interesting look at K-pop fandom.
It was.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.